Forgiveness is often spoken of as one of the highest virtues, a bridge that allows human beings to move beyond conflict, disappointment, or betrayal. It is painted as the medicine that heals the wounds of the heart, the cleansing water that washes away the bitterness of anger and the heaviness of resentment. And yet, when forgiveness is spoken of without limits, without boundaries, it creates an illusion that forgiving endlessly is the same as loving endlessly, that to accept all harm without resistance is the same as spiritual maturity. This illusion has trapped many in cycles of pain because they mistake tolerance for wisdom and endurance for liberation. Endless forgiveness becomes an illusion when it asks you to silence your own truth, to diminish your own dignity, to erase the lessons that suffering was meant to teach. In the name of compassion, you begin to accept what should never have been accepted. In the name of understanding, you excuse what should never have been excused. And slowly, the act of forgiveness is no longer an act of conscious release, but rather a surrendering of your own integrity. To forgive endlessly without reflection is not strength, it is a blindness that keeps one chained to repeating wounds. Forgiveness, when authentic, requires awareness. It is a conscious process of acknowledging the pain that was caused, recognizing the imperfection of the human heart, and choosing not to carry the poison within yourself any longer. It is about letting go of the burning coal in your hand so that you do not continue to be burned. But if forgiveness is stretched without discernment, if it is given without accountability, it ceases to be liberation and becomes self-betrayal. The illusion tells you that by endlessly forgiving, you rise above. In truth, you only sink deeper, because the same patterns will find their way back to you again and again. There is a balance between mercy and self-respect, between compassion and clarity. To walk this balance is to understand that while the human heart has infinite capacity for love, the human life does not have infinite time to waste in cycles of harm. Every moment given to someone who continues to break you without remorse is a moment stolen from your own growth, your own journey, your own unfolding. The illusion of endless forgiveness robs you of this recognition. It convinces you that endurance equals enlightenment, that patience equals transcendence. But endurance without purpose becomes stagnation, and patience without direction becomes paralysis. The world is not healed by passivity. Relationships are not strengthened by ignoring wounds. And the soul is not elevated by constantly excusing destruction. Forgiveness must carry with it responsibility. Responsibility for the one who acted and responsibility for the one who chooses whether to continue standing in the same place or to walk away. Endless forgiveness in its illusion removes responsibility from both sides. It gives permission to the one who harms to continue harming, and it traps the one who forgives in a cage of unacknowledged suffering. This illusion also disguises itself as virtue. It whispers that to refuse forgiveness is to be cold-hearted, that to draw boundaries is to lack compassion. It tells you that a spiritual person never closes their door, never says enough, never steps away. But true spirituality does not ask for the destruction of the self. True compassion does not demand that you betray your own well-being. The wisdom of forgiveness lies in discernment, knowing when it is a bridge to healing and when it is a chain to suffering. Without this wisdom, forgiveness becomes a hollow ritual, repeated endlessly but never leading to peace. Consider the energy required to forgive. Each time you forgive, you expend effort, you release emotion, you give away a portion of your inner strength. To forgive without limit is to continually pour out this energy without ever replenishing it. Just as a river can dry if it is not fed, the human heart can become hollow if it is drained without nourishment. Endless forgiveness empties the soul, leaving only fatigue where once there was kindness, leaving bitterness where once there was gentleness. The illusion convinces you that you are practicing compassion, but in truth you are slowly eroding your own capacity to love. Forgiveness must be a conscious act of release, not an unconscious act of tolerance. It must be guided by awareness of truth, not drowned by fear of conflict. Endless forgiveness removes the necessary reflection, the pause to ask, has this person changed? Has this situation evolved? Has my act of forgiveness transformed anything, or has it only enabled repetition? Without these questions, forgiveness loses its power. It no longer liberates, it only sustains cycles of suffering. The illusion is seductive because it seems noble. To forgive endlessly appears saintly, it appeals to the desire to be seen as compassionate, as pure as above ordinary grievances. But true strength does not lie in appearances. It lies in honesty. Honesty to acknowledge pain, honesty to admit limits, honesty to walk away when walking away is the only way to preserve one's own spirit. Endless forgiveness denies this honesty, masking it under the veil of goodness. But a goodness that destroys the self is no goodness at all. It is self-deception dressed as virtue. The art of forgiveness lies not in its endlessness, but in its depth. To forgive once, fully, consciously, is more powerful than to forgive endlessly without thought. To forgive with clarity is to free both yourself and the other from the shadow of the past. But to forgive without clarity is to remain trapped in that shadow, forever circling the same wound, never allowing it to heal. The illusion of endless forgiveness promises light but delivers darkness, promises freedom but sustains bondage, promises peace but cultivates turmoil. There are moments in life when the loudest changes do not come with noise. They do not announce themselves with thunder or fireworks. They do not demand attention in the way chaos does. Instead, they move quietly, almost invisibly, like the unseen tide that shapes the shoreline without ever being noticed. This is what can be called the silent shift. It is the transformation that takes place beneath the surface, where no one else can see, but where everything that matters begins to change. We often look for change in dramatic gestures, in big decisions, in sudden breaks from the past. Yet the deepest changes rarely arrive this way. They grow slowly, silently, within the individual who chooses to pause, reflect, and realign. Just as a seed breaks open underground long before its sprout reaches the light, transformation begins in silence. It is not the act of doing more, but of listening more closely. It is not about proving strength, but about conserving energy until the right moment to move. Silence is powerful because it creates space. In silence, you no longer react immediately to the world outside. You stop running after distractions, stop fighting battles that don't need to be fought, stop wasting your strength on proving yourself. Instead, you withdraw into stillness, and in this stillness you find clarity. The silent shift begins when noise loses its control over you. You are no longer pushed and pulled by the urgency of others, by the expectations of the world, by the restlessness of your own thoughts. You begin to see what is essential. You begin to hear the truth that was always there, waiting beneath the surface. In silence, a person learns to separate what is real from what is illusion. The world teaches us to attach value to applause, to possessions, to recognition. But in the quiet, you see how temporary these things are. They vanish as quickly as they appear. Silence strips away the layers of false identity, and what remains is the essence of who you truly are. This essence is not dependent on external validation. It is not fragile or shifting like reputation. It is steady, unshakable, and deeply connected to the rhythm of life itself. The silent shift is not about doing nothing. It is about doing what is invisible to others but deeply transformative for the self. It is about choosing reflection over reaction, choosing patience over restlessness, choosing presence over distraction. It is about aligning the inner world so that the outer world no longer holds the same power over you. The greatest shift is not when the circumstances change, but when the relationship to those circumstances changes. Consider the way water shapes stone. It is not through force or noise, but through persistence, through patience, through a silent consistency. The water does not need to announce its power. It simply flows, and in time, the stone is transformed. In the same way, the silent shift takes place not through dramatic effort, but through steady presence. Every day spent in awareness, every moment spent in reflection, every breath taken in stillness adds to the invisible work of change. The challenge is that silence is uncomfortable for many. To be silent is to face yourself without distraction. It is to hear the thoughts you have avoided, to feel the emotions you have buried, to confront the fears you have carried. But within this confrontation lies the possibility of release. The silent shift happens when what was suppressed is allowed to surface and dissolve. When the weight carried for so long is finally set down, energy that was trapped becomes available again. This energy then fuels growth, creativity, and clarity. Transformation that begins in silence often goes unnoticed by others. They may not understand what is happening because on the surface, nothing appears different. But inside, everything is being rearranged. The silent shift is a reorganization of priorities, a cleansing of the mind, a resetting of the heart. It is not meant to be seen by others. It is meant to be lived. And when the time is right, the change will naturally reveal itself, not because you force it, but because it has matured within you. The strength of silence is that it teaches patience. Nothing lasting grows in haste. The silent shift respects timing, just as nature respects seasons. There is a time for rest, a time for growth, a time for release, and a time for expression. When one accepts this rhythm, there is no longer a need to force outcomes. You begin to trust the process, to trust that what is meant to unfold will do so when the moment is ready. This trust is not blind, it is built through experience, through seeing how silence always prepares you for movement. Silence is not emptiness, it is fullness that is not yet expressed. It is potential waiting for the right form. It is the still water that reflects clearly, unlike the disturbed water that shows only distortion. The silent shift is the process of becoming still enough to see clearly, to hear truthfully, and to act purposefully. It does not demand attention, yet it contains within it the seed of transformation more powerful than any external force. When silence enters, the old patterns lose their hold. The mind, once restless, begins to calm. The heart, once burdened, begins to lighten. The body, once tense, begins to relax. This is the shift that cannot be measured by others but is felt deeply within. It is the movement from chaos to clarity, from noise to peace, from distraction to focus. It is the realization that power does not always come from speaking louder, moving faster, or striving harder. Sometimes, the greatest power is born from the quietest space. Pain has always been seen as something to be avoided, something to run away from, something that is an obstacle in the path of life. Yet, if one looks more deeply, pain has never been only a punishment. It has never been only a burden. Pain is, in its essence, a teacher, a strict guide who refuses to flatter, who never lies, and who always delivers the truth in its rawest form. Unlike pleasure, which comes and goes without asking for attention, pain demands focus. It grips the body, it arrests the mind, and it directs awareness toward what has been ignored for too long. Pain, whether physical, emotional, or spiritual, has the capacity to awaken those who have been asleep to the realities of their existence. When one experiences pain, the first instinct is resistance. The body contracts, the breath becomes shallow, the mind protests. But what happens when resistance is observed? The very act of resisting shows that pain is not just physical, it touches the ego. It shakes the identity, it questions the stability of one's life. This is why pain feels so disruptive. It does not simply hurt the flesh, it pierces into layers of illusion that a person has carefully built. Pain strips away the coverings and exposes the fragility beneath. There is no teacher as honest as pain. Friends may comfort, family may console, society may distract, but pain never pretends. It shows what is broken without hiding. A joint that aches is a signal of imbalance. A heart that suffers loss is evidence of attachment. A mind that struggles with fear is a reflection of lack of trust. Every form of pain is pointing somewhere. The question is never only, how do I escape this? But rather, what is this teaching me? This shift in perception changes everything. Instead of running away, one begins to listen. Instead of cursing the discomfort, one begins to ask what deeper lesson lies inside it. Pain sharpens perception. It forces attention into the present. In times of great joy, the mind often wanders, but in pain, the mind cannot escape. Every sensation, every thought, every heartbeat becomes magnified. This is why monks and masters throughout history have not feared pain. Some even embraced discipline that brought discomfort, because they understood that pain collapses all illusions of control and demands pure presence. When pain is seen not as the enemy but as a guide, its purpose transforms. There is also the humbling power of pain. It breaks pride, it softens arrogance, it humbles the strongest. A body that once felt invincible is brought to stillness by illness. A person who thought they could not be broken finds themselves on their knees in grief. Pain does not discriminate. It visits the rich and the poor, the wise and the ignorant, the strong and the weak. In this way, pain equalizes. It reminds every being of their humanity, of their vulnerability, and of their interconnection. Through this reminder, compassion grows. Only the one who has suffered can truly understand the suffering of others. Pain teaches patience. It slows everything down. In a world that glorifies speed, ambition, and constant movement, pain demands stillness. The injury that prevents movement, the heartbreak that prevents rushing into another distraction, the sorrow that demands solitude, all of these are invitations into waiting, into slowing down, into observing what lies underneath the constant chase. In patience, there is reflection, and in reflection there is wisdom. It is important to see that pain is never meaningless. To dismiss pain as accidental or cruel is to miss its teaching. Pain arrives with purpose, even if the mind cannot immediately see it. It may come to reveal imbalance in the way one eats, lives, or relates. It may come to shake someone out of complacency. It may come to push an individual toward a path they would never have chosen without the pressure of suffering. Pain redirects, it carves new pathways, it reshapes the map of life. When one begins to learn from pain instead of fighting against it, a strange thing happens. Pain does not disappear, but its sharpness softens. It no longer feels like an enemy, but like a stern companion. The body still aches, the heart still trembles, but alongside the discomfort arises clarity. One begins to realize that the struggle against pain often magnifies it, while acceptance opens the possibility of transcendence. Pain as a teacher also reveals the depth of resilience. A person may think they cannot endure, yet they do. They may believe they cannot heal, yet healing comes slowly, quietly through time. Pain expands the capacity of the soul by stretching its limits. It teaches endurance, and endurance builds strength. This is why those who have walked through great pain often carry a quiet power. Their strength is not loud, it is not displayed in arrogance, but it is steady, unshakable, grounded in the lessons pain has carved into them. Pain is the teacher that shapes character. It creates depth where there was only surface. It brings sincerity where there was only pretense. It polishes the spirit like stone rubbed again and again until smoothness is achieved. The lessons of pain are not quickly forgotten, because they are etched into the memory of the body and the soul. Each scar becomes a reminder not of defeat, but of survival, of growth, of transformation. And so, when pain arrives, it is not only to torment, it is to awaken, to direct, to teach. It comes to break illusions, to cultivate patience, to expand compassion, to test endurance, and to reveal resilience. Pain demands to be felt, but even more, it demands to be understood. Within every ache, within every sorrow, within every struggle lies a lesson waiting to be recognized, a truth waiting to be acknowledged, a wisdom waiting to be embodied. A door closes, and often the first reaction is resistance. The mind rushes forward with questions. Why did it close? What did I do wrong? Could I have kept it open longer if I had tried harder? This resistance is natural because humans have been conditioned to hold on to possibilities, to keep every path available, even when it leads nowhere. The closing of a door is seen as a loss, but in truth, it is a movement of life itself, a gesture of completion, a signal that something has reached its natural conclusion. When a door shuts, silence follows. In that silence, there is discomfort, because silence does not give answers quickly. It asks us to pause and feel the emptiness left behind. The room that was once filled with possibility now feels bare, and the instinct is to fill it with something. New plans, new distractions, new connections. Yet, the real invitation in the closing of a door is to wait, to linger, to recognize that the emptiness itself holds meaning. The closing is not against you, it is simply life whispering that this chapter has served its purpose. There is power in endings. Endings strip away illusions. They show you where you have placed too much dependence, where you have clung to the familiar, and where your identity has become entangled with situations that no longer support your growth. A closed door is like a teacher who speaks without words, pointing to attachments you did not see. Every closed door is an instruction to look inward, to reflect on what you truly needed and what you only thought you needed. The mind, however, does not enjoy this kind of reflection. It prefers movement options and the illusion of control. So when a door closes, it searches for a way back in, imagining alternate scenarios, rehearsing conversations, trying to resurrect something that has already dissolved. This is the root of suffering, the refusal to accept that not all doors are meant to stay open. Just as seasons must change, just as night must follow day, certain paths must come to an end. If you listen carefully, the closing of a door is not abrupt. It has its rhythm. Long before it shuts, there are signals. You feel the shift in energy, the weakening of alignment, the fading of resonance. The conversations feel different. The air carries a subtle heaviness. The joy that was once present has turned into effort. These are not accidents. They are the slow turning of the hinges. Life rarely closes a door suddenly. It begins to withdraw gradually, inviting you to prepare, to step into acceptance. But because the human heart resists change, we often miss these signals and experience the closure as a shock. there is also dignity in allowing a door to close without force. To slam it in anger or to keep prying it open creates turbulence. To watch it close gently, to breathe and allow the sound of the lock to echo without fear, that is strength. It means you trust the greater flow of existence more than your personal attachment to a single outcome. The closing of a door, then, becomes not a punishment but a ritual of trust, a bow to the rhythm of life. Consider the architecture of existence. If every door remained open, there would be no direction, no structure, no privacy for the soul to rest. Open doors invite movement, but closed doors define the path. Without the closing, there is no clarity. The closing is what allows you to turn, to face another hallway, to walk toward another threshold. A life without doors shutting would be chaos. A life with doors closing creates shape, meaning, and depth. The emotions that arise when a door closes are not enemies. Sadness, grief, uncertainty, they are natural responses to transition. But if you sit with them quietly, you will notice that beneath the waves of emotion, there is a stillness that does not depend on what is open or closed. That stillness is your anchor, and it is always present, whether doors open or shut. The practice, then, is to return to that stillness, to recognize it as the constant companion of your life. In many ways, the closing of a door is a mirror. It reflects back your ability to release, your relationship with change, your capacity to surrender to the unknown. If you see it only as loss, it will remain heavy. If you see it as an initiation, it becomes light. Every closure asks you, can you trust that there is something beyond what your eyes can see right now? Can you live with the mystery until it reveals itself? The closing of a door also carries within it the wisdom of boundaries. Not all spaces are meant to remain accessible forever. Some experiences must be sealed so that their lessons are preserved. Some relationships must end so that their memory can mature into wisdom. Some opportunities must vanish so that they can awaken in another form. The closed door keeps sacred what cannot continue in the same shape, honoring its place in your journey without allowing it to consume the road ahead. So the closing is not a denial but a redirection. It is not the world turning its back on you, but the world guiding you toward where you are truly meant to be. To understand this requires patience, because the new door does not always appear immediately. There is often a corridor of waiting, a stretch of quiet hallways where nothing seems certain. This in-between space tests your trust, your faith, and your ability to walk without knowing exactly where you are going. But this corridor is not empty. It is where your strength gathers, where your perception sharpens, where your inner compass grows stronger. The sound of a door closing is not finality, it is transition. It is the pause between one chapter and the next. It is the stillness between breaths, the silence between notes in music. Without it, the rhythm of life would lose its meaning. The closing is what gives rise to opening, just as dusk gives rise to dawn. To see this is to live not in fear of endings, but in reverence for their quiet necessity. Strength is often mistaken for the ability to endure more, to carry heavier burdens, or to tolerate pain longer than others. Yet real strength is not measured by how much we can suffer or how much we allow into our lives. True strength arises from the clarity to recognize limits, the wisdom to establish boundaries, and the discipline to maintain them. Boundaries are not walls of weakness, they are frameworks of integrity. They shape how energy is directed, how respect is cultivated, and how one's inner world is protected from being consumed by external demands. Boundaries are a declaration of value. They state without words that your time, your energy, and your presence are not infinite resources to be taken at will. Just as water becomes powerful when it is channeled through the narrow mouth of a riverbank, human energy gains force when it is contained within the discipline of boundaries. A person without boundaries is like a river that floods, uncontrolled, overwhelming, and eventually destructive. But with clear borders, energy does not scatter, it flows with focus and direction. Strength in boundaries does not come from aggression or conflict. It comes from quiet clarity. It is the power to say no without anger and the ability to say yes without fear of being taken advantage of. It is the courage to protect inner peace even when the world pushes against it. Many people believe that to be kind means to be endlessly available, but this is not kindness, it is depletion. Kindness that sacrifices the self until nothing remains is not sustainable. True kindness emerges from a foundation of self-respect, and self-respect is impossible without boundaries. When a person creates boundaries, they are not pushing others away. They are inviting healthier forms of connection. A boundary communicates, "This is where I can meet you, and this is where I cannot." It brings clarity rather than confusion. Without boundaries, relationships become tangled with resentment, manipulation, and unspoken frustration. With them, relationships gain honesty, structure, and respect. The strength of any relationship is not measured by how close two people can stand without space, but by how well they respect the invisible lines that protect individuality. In the practice of boundaries, silence plays a crucial role. Often, people believe that boundaries must be explained in great detail, justified endlessly, or defended aggressively. But true boundaries do not need justification. A simple silence, a step back, or a refusal to engage in certain patterns is itself the language of strength. Silence does not mean passivity, it means clarity that does not require validation. The strongest tree does not explain why it will not bend. It simply stands. Boundaries are also not rigid structures meant to control others. They are living practices that evolve with awareness. Just as the seasons change, so too do the boundaries we set for ourselves. There are times when openness is strength, and there are times when firmness is strength. Wisdom lies in knowing which is required in the moment. A boundary that is too rigid becomes a prison, closing off life. A boundary too loose dissolves into chaos, draining vitality. Balance is found in the middle path, firm yet flexible, clear yet compassionate. Strength in boundaries also reveals itself in how one relates to the self. Internal boundaries are just as vital as external ones. They are the lines drawn within the mind, the discipline to not indulge every thought, every impulse, or every emotion. To have no inner boundaries is to be a slave to constant distraction, carried away by every passing desire. But with internal boundaries, the mind learns stillness. The ability to say, "This thought does not deserve my attention, this impulse does not align with my values, this reaction does not serve me," is a profound form of power. When one practices boundaries, energy that was once wasted on unnecessary conflict, over-explaining, or people-pleasing becomes conserved. That energy transforms into focus, creativity, and growth. Life begins to feel lighter not because problems disappear, but because the self no longer attempts to carry what is not theirs to hold. Strength is not carrying more than one must. Strength is carrying only what truly belongs. The absence of boundaries leads to exhaustion. A life without boundaries feels like being pulled in countless directions, never fully present, always at the mercy of others' needs and expectations. Over time, this exhaustion becomes bitterness, and bitterness becomes suffering. But with boundaries, life regains clarity. The individual begins to see where they end and where others begin. They no longer confuse compassion with sacrifice, nor mistake tolerance for love. In every tradition of wisdom, there is recognition of the sacred circle. A circle defines space, protects what is within, and clarifies what is outside. Boundaries are the sacred circles we draw in our lives. They allow us to remain open-hearted while still being protected. They allow us to serve others while still honoring ourselves. And they allow us to walk in the world with strength that is calm, steady, and unshakable. Boundaries are not about exclusion, they are about alignment. They are not meant to build barriers, but to create harmony. To know where to give and where to hold back, where to open and where to close, where to engage and where to withdraw. This is strength. It is a strength that does not shout, does not force, does not dominate. It is a strength that simply exists, steady and grounded like the mountain that does not move regardless of the winds that pass by. Transformation is rarely loud. It does not always arrive with fireworks or grand announcements. The most powerful shifts happen in silence, beneath the surface, far away from the eyes of others. Just like a seed buried deep in the soil, unseen by the world, yet preparing for the inevitable moment it breaks through into the light, our deepest changes are born in places no one else notices. The unseen transformation is the true work of life. When people look at transformation, they often expect visible signs, success, recognition, achievements. They want to see immediate proof that change is happening. But the truth is, what is seen is only the surface. The real transformation begins in the unseen layers of the mind, the heart, and the spirit. It is invisible because it is internal, but it is in this internal space that the most profound alchemy occurs. Think of a caterpillar hidden inside a cocoon. On the outside, it appears still, lifeless, almost fragile. If one were to judge by appearances, they might think nothing is happening. But inside, every part of its being is dissolving, restructuring, reforming into something entirely different. It is not a process of comfort, but of surrender. It is the unseen transformation that will eventually reveal the butterfly. Human beings undergo this same kind of hidden transformation. There are times in life when we seem quiet, withdrawn, or even stuck. To the outside world, it may look like nothing is happening. Yet within us, our thoughts, emotions, and perceptions are being reshaped. Old identities are dissolving, beliefs are being questioned, and new possibilities are quietly forming. These stages of invisibility are not wasted time, they are the necessary stages of growth. The unseen transformation requires patience. In a world that constantly pushes for speed and results, this patience feels unnatural. But one cannot force a seed to grow faster by pulling on its leaves, nor can one demand a river to flow more quickly. Transformation unfolds according to its own rhythm. It happens when the conditions are right, not when our impatience insists. To trust this process is to honor the wisdom of nature itself. Silence is often where transformation begins. When distractions are removed, when the noise of the world fades, one is left face to face with oneself. It is in this space of quiet reflection that we begin to notice patterns, habits, and attachments that no longer serve us. These realizations are not always easy to accept, yet they are the catalysts of unseen transformation. The more we learn to embrace silence, the more we allow the inner restructuring to take place. There is also an element of letting go. Transformation cannot happen if we hold on tightly to what is familiar. The old identity, the old pain, the old belief system, these must dissolve to make space for the new. Just as the caterpillar must surrender its form, we too must surrender what no longer aligns with who we are becoming. This surrender is invisible to the outside world, but within it is the most powerful act we can take. The unseen transformation is not about appearances but about essence. It is not concerned with how others perceive us, but with how we align within ourselves. Many times, people may not understand what you are going through because they cannot see it. They may think you are stagnant or wasting time. But the unseen work you are doing is laying the foundation for a shift so deep that when it finally emerges, it will be undeniable. Energy plays a role in this process. The unseen transformation is an energetic realignment. When thoughts, emotions, and intentions begin to harmonize, a different frequency is created within. This energy cannot be measured with the eyes, yet it radiates outward, shaping the way we experience life. The unseen always precedes the seen. Change in energy precedes change in form. Consider how the roots of a tree function. Buried beneath the earth, they are hidden from sight, but they hold the entire tree upright, nourish it, and allow it to grow. Without the unseen roots, there could be no visible tree. Likewise, without the unseen transformation within you, there can be no lasting change in the external aspects of your life. The foundation must always be built where the eye cannot see. This hidden transformation often feels uncomfortable. Just as muscles tear in order to grow stronger, the internal restructuring challenges us. Old habits resist, the mind clings to comfort, the heart hesitates to release the past. This friction is part of the process. It is a sign that something deeper is taking place, something preparing to emerge in a stronger and more authentic form. The unseen transformation also teaches humility. Because it is not for others to witness, it cannot be validated through external praise or recognition. It is a personal journey, an inner evolution that does not seek approval. In this way, it teaches us to rely less on the opinions of others and more on our own alignment. True growth is not about display, it is about integrity. Every person you see who radiates wisdom, peace, or strength has gone through countless unseen transformations. Their glow is not an accident, but the result of many silent battles fought within. The struggles they overcame were not visible, yet they reshaped the essence of who they are. To admire the outer light of someone is to unknowingly acknowledge the inner work they endured in silence. Transformation is not an event, but a continuous unfolding. Each stage of life brings new challenges, new lessons, and new layers to shed. Each time we enter the unseen space of change, we are being prepared for a higher version of ourselves. The unseen transformation is the quiet preparation for the visible breakthrough, and the more we embrace its hidden nature, the more complete the transformation becomes